Sometimes the most unexpected betrayals are the ones that shatter our entire reality. Picture Emily Parker, a loving mother and devoted wife, stepping into the grand lobby of the Hyatt Regency in downtown Chicago. Her pulse quickened at the thought of surprising her husband, Michael, on his routine business trip. Yet, instead of his welcoming embrace, she was greeted by a sight that ripped her world apart. A tender kiss shared between him and a mysterious woman in a sleek black coat. In that single heart-stopping moment, everything changed. Secrets spilled into the open, hearts broke. And as a new chapter began, it unfolded into a storm of regret, revenge, and the ultimate fight for hope. Emily Parker woke to the sound of her alarm clock vibrating stubbornly on the bedside table, its gentle buzzing a relentless reminder of the hectic day ahead. She blinked herself awake, momentarily disoriented by the early dawn light cutting through the thin curtains. For a moment, she simply lay there, taking in the comforting smell of fresh linen and the faint lemony tang of the cleaning spray she always used. Next to her, the bed was cold and empty. Michael had left for Chicago the previous afternoon, attending yet another financial conference as part of his ever-demanding job at Harper & Green Investments. Their 3-year-old daughter, Olivia, stirred in the next room. Emily could hear the soft hum of a lullaby playing from the child's nightlight, a small giraffe that projected stars onto the ceiling. She swung her legs off the bed, the cool morning air a stark contrast to the warmth she'd been cocooned in, and headed to Olivia's room, her mind already flipping through the day's tasks. She planned to surprise Michael in Chicago that evening. Over the last few months, an uneasy feeling had gnawed at her, a suspicion she kept pushing aside, while Michael claimed to be overwhelmed with work. She wanted to see for herself if everything was really as he said. She scooped Olivia into her arms, inhaling the sweet baby shampoo in her daughter's hair. A wave of resolve swept over her. For years, she had trusted Michael blindly. He was the calm, steady presence in her life, a man who made time for bedtime stories and neighborhood barbecues, even as he rose through the ranks of his firm. Yet, something had changed. It was in the way he avoided her eyes at the dinner table, in the vague excuses he made after late-night phone calls. Emily needed clarity, and she was determined to get it. Despite her growing worries, Emily couldn't forget the man who once charmed her with fresh daisies on their first date. In the early days, Michael was her everything. They had met by chance at an art gallery in downtown Seattle. Introduced by mutual acquaintances, Emily had been immediately drawn to his warm laugh and quiet confidence. They shared a passion for exploring museums, volunteering at local charities, and dreaming of a future filled with travel, love, and children. But as Michael climbed higher in his career, work trips became the norm. It started slowly, a day trip to Los Angeles, a 2-night conference in Boston. Emily had brushed off any concerns back then, reminding herself that she had married a man with ambition. His success was their success. But with each promotion, Michael's job demands soared. His phone was forever buzzing with new messages. His eyes flickered with tension whenever she asked questions. A month ago, Emily found a receipt in Michael's coat pocket from the St. Regis Hotel in Chicago. It was for a lavish dinner for 2. Michael had told her it was merely a networking meal with a prospective client named Mr. Harrison. Yet, the scrolled signature on the receipt wasn't Michael's handwriting. Alarm bells rang in Emily's mind, but she was too afraid to push him, afraid of what she might learn. In the back of her mind, she clung to a fragile hope that there was an innocent explanation. That morning, as she kissed Olivia goodbye and entrusted her to the care of her mother, Susan Miller, Emily's nerves twisted in her stomach. She told herself she was just going to surprise Michael, to remind him that his family was right here, waiting and loving him. She prayed that her doubts were unfounded and that by nightfall, they would be laughing about her silly suspicions. She had no idea that what she would witness in a few short hours would change everything. The drive from their suburban home in Lake Forest to Chicago was typically just over an hour, but traffic stretched it to nearly 2. Emily found herself tapping her fingers anxiously on the steering wheel, her eyes flicking to the clock every few minutes. She had planned her arrival to coincide with Michael's break between conference sessions. The plan was simple. Appear in the hotel lobby around 7 in the evening, text him to meet her by the grand staircase, and greet him with a heartfelt kiss. She hoped the spontaneity would reignite the spark that had dwindled over the past year. As she navigated the bustling city streets, Emily remembered how much she used to love Chicago. She had attended college here years ago and always found an unmatched energy in its towering skyline. Now, the once exciting metropolis felt daunting, its tall buildings pressing in on her. She turned onto Michigan Avenue, weaving through throngs of pedestrians. With every mile, her heart pounded faster. She parked in an underground garage and made her way to the Hyatt Regency, an enormous structure that soared above the city. Emily swiped a bit of lipstick across her lips, checked her reflection in the mirrored panels near the revolving doors, and took a calming breath. She tried not to let her anxious thoughts overshadow her intentions. If she was going to face Michael, it had to be with confidence. Clutching her purse, she stepped into the grand lobby with its marble floors and lofty ceilings. She could almost imagine Michael's surprised grin, the way he'd lift her up in a twirl. But as she scanned the opulent space, she didn't see him at the lounge or by the registration desk. Instead, she saw something else, something that made her freeze in her tracks. There, near the bar area, under soft golden lights, sat Michael. He wasn't alone. A woman with dark, cascading hair leaned close, her hand resting intimately on his arm. Emily's brain struggled to process what she was seeing. For a second, she prayed it was some misunderstanding. Perhaps this was a colleague, and they were discussing business details. But then Michael turned to the woman, and their lips met in a slow, unmistakably romantic kiss. Emily felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. Numbness washed over her entire body. Her feet rooted to the spot, and it was as if the rest of the world faded away, leaving only the horrifying sight of her husband kissing a stranger. It was surreal, like a bad dream from which she couldn't wake. She stood there, not more than 20 feet away, unnoticed by Michael. The woman, elegantly dressed in a fitted black coat, pulled back and gazed adoringly at him. Emily recognized that look. It was the look of someone deeply involved. She realized with acute clarity that this wasn't just a casual fling. This was something that had been going on long enough for them to appear entirely at ease in public. Tears pricked the back of her eyes, but fury overcame her shock. How dare he do this here, so blatantly? She wanted to stride across the lobby, slap him, make a scene. 1,000 impulses warred in her mind. Heartbreak, anger, confusion, and the fragile remains of her dignity. Ultimately, she took a shaking breath and backed away, retreating into the shadows of the expansive corridor, leaving Michael and his mistress, who for now remained oblivious to Emily's presence. Emily didn't remember how she got from the hotel to the street. One moment she was inside that marble lobby watching Michael betray her. The next, she was stumbling onto the sidewalk, swallowing lungfuls of the frigid Chicago air. Her phone buzzed in her purse, but she couldn't bring herself to look at it. If it was Michael, she didn't want to talk to him. If it was anyone else, she couldn't summon the strength to explain what she just witnessed. For what felt like hours, she wandered aimlessly along the streets, tears streaming down her cheeks. She replayed the scene in her head over and over, each iteration stabbing deeper than the last. Glimpses of their life together flashed before her eyes. Michael's smile on their wedding day, the time he wept with joy when Olivia was born, the nights he would scoop her into his arms and promise her the world. How could that same man, now, be kissing another woman without remorse? Eventually, she found herself standing near a small park, the lights from a nearby cafe illuminating the tears on her face. She sank onto a bench and let her emotions course through her. Anger flared, white-hot, mingling with heartbreak. She wanted answers, yet the thought of confronting Michael right now was too much to bear. Her phone buzzed again. Summoning her nerve, she pulled it out to see a text from her mother, Susan, who asked, "How's the surprise going? Is Michael excited?" Olivia's asking for her daddy. Emily's gut twisted as she read the words. How could she ever explain this to Olivia? She typed a quick, shaky reply. Not great. I'll be home soon. Then she hailed a taxi back to her car, her mind already plotting her next move. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She paced the living room, waiting for Michael to return from Chicago. She had no intention of revealing she had gone there to see him. Let him try to lie his way out. First, she wanted to see how deep his betrayal would go. Around midnight, Michael finally strode into the house, a duffel bag slung over his shoulder and the faint smell of hotel soap clinging to his skin. Hey, honey, he greeted, sounding casual, almost loving, as though nothing was amiss. Conference ran late. You didn't have to wait up. Emily forced a tight smile. I wanted to see you, she replied coolly. In truth, she was marveling at his ability to pretend. Her heart hammered against her rib cage, and she felt the urge to scream at him, to demand he tell her the truth. But she waited, letting the tension build between them. Michael went to the kitchen, poured himself a glass of water, and offered Emily one as well. As he turned around, she fixed him with a steady gaze. Did you have dinner with Mr. Harrison again? She asked, her voice trembling lightly. He hesitated, eyes flicking away for the briefest moment before returning to hers. Yet he lied smoothly. It was all business, just like before. Emily's anger flared at the blatant untruth. She clenched her fists at her sides, her nails digging into her palms. She could feel her composure crumbling. Suddenly, she snapped. Stop lying to me, Michael. I saw you. His glass of water slipped from his fingers, shattering on the tile floor. For a moment, neither of them moved. The confession hung in the air, heavier than the tension that preceded it. Saw me, he whispered, his face draining of color. Emily gulped a shaky breath, eyes brimming with tears. I was at the Hyatt tonight. I saw you with her. She spat the final word with venom, each syllable echoing with betrayal. Michael's mind whirred as he scrambled to regain control of the situation. Emily watched his expressions shift from shock to denial, then to something like desperation. He opened his mouth, closed it again, then finally managed, "It's not what you think." Emily laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "Oh, really? Because it looked like you and that woman were pretty cozy," she said, crossing her arms over her chest. "Is she your mistress?" Michael ran a hand through his hair. "She's Jessica Bell," he admitted, voice low. "She's a colleague from the firm. We've been seeing each other." Emily's stomach lurched, and she turned away, unable to look at him. Of all the words she expected to hear, his direct admission of guilt was both validating and soul-crushing. "Why?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mix of rage and hurt. "Why would you do this to us?" He took a faltering step forward, only to stop when he saw her recoil. "It just happened." Michael tried, his voice shaking. "I've been under a lot of stress. Jessica understands my work. She's there late at night, pulling the same hours, dealing with the same pressures." "Don't," Emily hissed, tears streaking her face. "Don't you dare reduce this to stress and late nights. We have a child, Michael. We had a life." He wiped a hand across his face. "I never stopped loving you," he insisted. "This was a mistake, a terrible mistake." "That's a convenient word," she spat, "and one that doesn't mean much now. You think you can just come back, say it was a mistake, and everything is fine?" She turned away again, her voice dropping to a pained whisper. "I trusted you." Michael tried to speak, but she cut him off with a trembling hand. "It's too late for apologies. You made your choice." With that, she fled to their bedroom, leaving him alone in the kitchen, shards of broken glass and cold water pooling around his feet, a fitting metaphor for the ruin of their marriage. Emily had always believed she could handle anything if she and Michael faced it together. But that night, as she curled into a tight ball on their bed, she realized she was on her own. The magnitude of his betrayal crushed her. The man she thought she knew inside and out had been leading a double life. How could she ever trust him again? Throughout the night, Emily wrestled with her thoughts. She heard Michael downstairs making phone calls, likely to Jessica. She wondered if he was telling her that Emily knew. The idea of them discussing her pain so casually left her furious and humiliated. She knew she couldn't stay in that house, playing the role of a dutiful wife while Michael sorted out his affair. When Olivia's soft cries broke the silence at dawn, Emily rose mechanically. She realized with sudden clarity what she had to do. She needed to leave. Emily's first priority was her daughter, protecting her from the fallout of this nightmare. As Olivia's innocent eyes opened, Emily forced a reassuring smile onto her face, but inside, her heart was in shreds. Once Olivia was fed and dressed, Emily scribbled a short note for Michael. "I'm taking Olivia away for a while. Don't follow us. We need space." She set the note on the kitchen counter, next to the shards of broken glass that still lay there from the night before Michael hadn't even bothered to clean them up. It was symbolic, she realized, of how little he cared for order now that his secret was out. Emily packed a suitcase, taking only essentials. She called her mother, but Susan didn't pick up. She didn't leave a voicemail. She wanted to make her move before Michael woke up, give herself a head start. Within half an hour, Emily had Olivia strapped into the back seat of the car and was pulling away from the life she had known. She drove eastward, not entirely sure where she was going. Emily had distant relatives in Michigan, an aunt named Clara, who'd moved to a lakeside property near Traverse City. It was a place Emily had visited a few times in childhood. Aunt Clara and Emily's mother had never been particularly close, but Emily remembered her aunt as a kind, if somewhat reserved, woman. With no other plan in mind, Emily dialed the number she found in an old address book tucked away in the glove compartment. To her relief, Clara picked up on the second ring. After a hasty explanation that left out most details, Emily asked if she and Olivia could stay for a while. "We just need to get away," she confessed in a trembling voice. Despite years of little contact, Clara hesitated only for a moment before agreeing. The promise of a temporary haven calmed Emily's racing heart. She pressed down on the accelerator, determined to put as much distance as possible between them and Michael. Olivia dozed in the back seat, hugging her little stuffed elephant. Every now and then, Emily glanced in the rearview mirror, tears stinging her eyes. She felt guilty uprooting Olivia's life, but she believed she was protecting her daughter from the emotional storm. For now, at least, they would be safe in a remote lakeside cottage, away from the chaos Michael's actions had unleashed. As the cityscape gave way to open highway and then rolling farmland, Emily's thoughts drifted to what would happen next. She had no clear plan. The heartbreak was too fresh to think about lawyers or custody battles. But one thing was sure, she would not let Michael's betrayal define her or harm Olivia. If he wanted to keep playing the role of an unfaithful husband, he would do it alone. Michael awoke in an empty house. The silence, usually comforting after a long trip, felt suffocating. He rubbed his eyes and glanced at his phone. No new messages from Emily. Confusion prickled at his mind. Normally, Olivia would be chattering in the living room, or Emily would have breakfast ready. He rolled out of bed, the events of the previous night seeping back into his consciousness like a poison. He found Emily's note on the kitchen counter. His stomach lurched as he read it. "I'm taking Olivia away for a while. Don't follow us. We need space." Shock turned to panic. She was gone, and she had taken Olivia. Michael ran a hand through his hair, guilt and fear swirling together. He reached for his phone, dialing Emily's number, but it went straight to voicemail. He tried Susan's number, hoping her mother would have some information. But Susan sounded just as alarmed when Michael mentioned Emily's disappearance. "What do you mean she's gone?" Susan demanded. "She left Olivia with me yesterday morning. Now you're saying she took Olivia away." When Michael's stunned silence answered her question well enough, Susan hung up in anger, promising to find her daughter. Michael paced the house like a trapped animal, scanning for any sign of where Emily might have gone. He scoured her desk drawers, the bedroom closet, even the attic. There was no clue. All he found were the heartbreakingly empty spaces where Emily's clothes had been. The realization that she had planned this departure packed Olivia's things, written the note, and left without looking back crushed him. He knew he had done this. He was the one who'd introduced deceit into their marriage. And now, facing the consequences, the depth of his regret began to sink in. But regret wouldn't bring Emily back. If he wanted to salvage anything, he would have to take drastic steps to win back his family's trust, assuming Emily would even give him the chance. Days stretched into a week, and still, Emily did not return. Michael reached out to everyone he could think of, mutual friends, acquaintances, even distant relatives. But no one knew where Emily and Olivia might be. In a moment of desperation, Michael confided in his best friend and co-worker, David Chun. David's advice was blunt. You need a lawyer. Reluctantly, Michael scheduled an appointment with Sarah Klein, a top family law attorney in Chicago. Sitting in her sleek office with floor-to-ceiling windows, Michael felt exposed and vulnerable. Sarah studied him from behind her large mahogany desk, her expression unreadable. "So, your wife left," she stated, scanning over the initial paperwork he had filled out, "and she took your child with her. Have you received any official communication regarding a divorce or custody arrangement?" Michael shook his head. "No, she left a note. That's it. I've tried calling, texting. No response." Sarah folded her hands. "Did you give her cause?" Michael's face burned. He cleared his throat. "I had an affair. She found out." Sarah nodded, her gaze never wavering. Infidelity can certainly precipitate drastic actions. "Look, we can file a petition for a formal custody arrangement, but if she hasn't filed for divorce yet, it's a bit tricky. Are you sure you want to go down that path immediately? Sometimes it escalates things beyond repair." Michael hesitated, tears pricking the corners of his eyes. All he truly wanted was to fix things with Emily, to apologize, to beg her forgiveness. But Emily was gone, and he had no idea how to reach her. "I just want to see my daughter," he whispered. "I'll do whatever it takes." Sarah's face softened slightly. "Let's hold off on immediate legal action. I'll do some private searching, see if we can find out where she might be staying. Once we know that, you can decide how to proceed. In the meantime, gather financial statements, property details, everything." Michael left her office feeling more lost than ever. He had set a ruinous ball in motion by kissing Jessica that night in the hotel lobby, by allowing their affair to blossom in the first place. Now, with Emily and Olivia vanished, he realized the gaping void where his family used to be. For the first time, the possibility of never seeing them again crushed him beyond measure. Emily found a quiet solace in Aunt Clara's lakeside home. The weather was beginning to warm, melting the last patches of snow around the cabin's perimeter. Olivia, oblivious to the drama unfolding, loved splashing at the shoreline with her tiny boots. She giggled when the cold water touched her toes and made a game of collecting shiny pebbles. Aunt Clara was an enigma. She did not pry for details about Emily's sudden arrival. Instead, she offered the comforts of home, warm meals, a cozy bedroom, and an ample supply of patient understanding. Emily was grateful for the sanctuary. When she couldn't sleep at night, she'd wandered down to the dock, staring out at the moonlit lake. The stillness of the water mirrored her new sense of limbo, not quite sure where she was headed, but certain she couldn't go back to the life she left. One evening, Aunt Clara joined Emily on the dock, handing her a steaming mug of tea. They stood in silence for a while, the night breeze rippling across the lake's surface. Finally, Clara spoke in her measured, quiet voice. "I don't need to know everything that happened, dear, but I can see the pain in your eyes." Emily nodded, tears brimming. "He cheated," she said simply. "I saw him. There's no doubt." Aunt Clara inhaled slowly. "I'm so sorry," she replied, setting a gentle hand on Emily's shoulder. "I'd never presume to tell you what to do, but know that if you need time, or if you need someone to lean on, I'm here." Emily exhaled shakily. "I just can't believe he'd throw away our family like that. Now I'm afraid. Afraid of the future. Afraid he'll try to take Olivia, or that I'll never be able to stand on my own 2 feet again." Clara's gaze was firm yet kind. "Emily, you're stronger than you think. Start with today. Focus on what you need right now to keep yourself and Olivia safe and stable." Over the following weeks, Emily took on small tasks to help Clara around the property. She found a moment of peace in the rhythm of raking leaves and planting new flowers. Olivia thrived on the freedom, chasing after butterflies and squealing with delight whenever a duck paddled near the shore. The constant ache of betrayal was still there, but day by day, Emily felt a small kernel of strength grow within her. While Emily and Olivia found an uneasy peace in Michigan, Michael's mistress, Jessica Bell, was facing her own challenges. In the aftermath of Emily's disappearance, Michael had distanced himself from Jessica, plagued by guilt and worry. Their once passionate affair, fueled by late-night strategy sessions and stolen kisses in the office corridor, had begun to sour under the weight of real-life consequences. Jessica was no stranger to ambition. She thrived in the fast-paced environment of Harper & Green Investments, but rumors circulated quickly in corporate hallways. Whispers of the married Michael Parker's affair reached many ears, and it didn't take long for people to link it to Jessica. The sly looks and hushed judgments weighed on her every time she walked into the office. She confronted Michael about his sudden coldness one evening when he agreed to meet her at a discreet cafe near their workplace. "I feel like you're punishing me for something we both chose," Jessica said, frustration evident in her voice. Michael rubbed his forehead. He looked tired, older somehow. "I'm not punishing you," he insisted. "I'm worried about Emily and Olivia. She's gone, Jessica. I have no clue where she is, and it's my fault." Jessica reached out to take his hand, but Michael pulled away. The rejection stung. "You can't blame yourself entirely," she tried. "We both knew what we were doing. Emily finding out, well, that was never going to be clean or easy." Michael stared into his coffee cup. "That doesn't help," he said, his voice hollow. "I need to make this right, but I don't even know how. Everything is a mess." Realizing the rift that had formed, Jessica felt resentment rise within her. She had risked her reputation and emotional well-being for a man who now seemed bent on retreating into his guilt. Still, she clung to the hope that she and Michael could weather the storm. After all, their bond went beyond mere lust, or so she believed. Frustrated by Sarah Klein's slow progress and desperate for answers, Michael hired a private investigator named Rick Thompson. Rick came highly recommended by David Chun, who had once used him for a sensitive corporate matter. Though Michael felt uneasy about spying on his own wife, he rationalized that he had no other choice if he wanted to see Olivia again. Rick was a middle-aged man with a calm demeanor and penetrating eyes. He listened intently as Michael recounted the night Emily left, the note, and the total lack of communication since. "She's not using her credit cards or her phone. At least, I can't trace anything," Michael explained anxiously. Rick nodded. "She's being cautious. Likely she's using cash or a secondary bank account you're not aware of." He tapped a pen against his notepad. "Any family she might rely on? Friends outside your circle?" Michael thought about Emily's mother, but Susan didn't seem to know anything. Then he remembered Emily's father had passed away years ago. "She has an aunt, I think, on her mother's side. Clara something. They weren't very close." Rick jotted down the name. "Clara. That's a start." He handed Michael a stack of forms. "Sign these. I'll check phone records, any property ownership under that name. It might take a while, but we'll find them." As Michael complied, his heart pounded with conflicting emotions. Hiring a PI felt like a violation of Emily's privacy, but the alternative, doing nothing, left him paralyzed. The memory of her tear-streaked face the night she confronted him sliced through his guilt. He told himself he was doing this for Olivia's sake, to be a father again, to fix what he'd broken. A small part of him feared what he'd say if he actually found Emily. Could they repair the marriage? Would she ever forgive him? Each question led to more uncertainty. Yet Michael pushed forward, fueled by desperation. Weeks passed in Michigan. Emily's life fell into a quiet routine. Breakfast with Aunt Clara and Olivia, walks by the lake, occasional trips to the small town for groceries. She had saved enough money to sustain them for a while, and Aunt Clara refused any rent payments, insisting Emily's presence was enough. Still, Emily knew she couldn't hide forever. She spent her nights reading about divorce laws, spousal support, and child custody. The words swam before her tired eyes, overwhelming her with legal jargon. She jotted questions in a notebook, hoping to someday get real legal advice. One afternoon, Emily received a phone call on the new prepaid cell phone she had purchased under a false name. To her surprise, it was Susan Miller, her mother. Emily froze, torn between her desire to talk to the woman who raised her and her fear that Michael might be tracking their communication. "Mom," Emily whispered, stepping out onto the cabin's porch. "Oh, thank God," Susan exclaimed, relief evident in her voice. "Emily, are you all right? Michael told me you left, but he doesn't know where you are." Emily hesitated, tears springing to her eyes. She missed her mother desperately, but she also feared that Susan might share her location with Michael. "We're safe," she managed. "I can't tell you where, though." "Not yet." Susan sniffled. "I won't force you, but please know I'm worried. Is Olivia okay?" "She's fine, Mom. She's healthy and happy." Emily looked toward the lake where Olivia was chasing after a butterfly. "How does he betray me, Mom? I can't go back." "Not now." "I understand," Susan replied. "I don't know what to think of Michael anymore. He seems genuinely torn up. But this is your decision, dear. Just promise me you'll stay in touch. I won't tell him anything you don't want me to." Emily allowed herself a tiny measure of comfort. "Thank you, Mom. I'll call again soon." As the call ended, Emily felt a strange combination of relief and guilt. She had reconnected with her mother, but she still felt guilty for cutting off Michael entirely. Yet, every time she pictured him with that other woman, the heartbreak flared anew. She reminded herself she was protecting Olivia, and she had no obligation to rush back into Michael's arms. Back in Chicago, Rick Thompson's investigation bore fruit. He discovered that a certain Clara Miller owned a modest lakeside property near Traverse City, Michigan. Public records indicated a recent utility spike, suggesting new occupants. Rick presented his findings to Michael in a manila envelope one morning at a discreet coffee shop. "This is likely where your wife is staying," Rick said matter-of-factly. "Based on what I've gathered, she's been there for at least a few weeks." Michael's hands trembled as he flipped through the pages. A property deed with Clara Miller's name, some bank transactions for groceries, a few photographs of Emily's car parked discreetly off the main road. Guilt and hope twisted together in his chest. She was within driving distance, alive and well with Olivia. "What do I do now?" Michael asked quietly. Rick shrugged. "That's your call. Legally, you can attempt to force her to return or at least negotiate custody. But if you truly want to reconcile, showing up with a court order might not be the best approach." Michael swallowed hard, thinking of Emily's tearful face. "I just want to see my daughter," he repeated. "I want Emily to know how sorry I am." Rick gave him a curt nod. "Then go. But I'd advise you to do it gently." Fueled by this revelation, Michael set out that same afternoon. The drive seemed endless, his thoughts a maelstrom. Would Emily slam the door in his face? Would she let Olivia see him? Did he even deserve forgiveness? Each mile brought him closer to answers he might not be ready to hear. Late evening shadows stretched across the gravel road as Michael pulled up to the address Rick had provided. The cottage stood near the water's edge, lights glowing softly inside. Michael parked a short distance away, heart pounding in his ears. He approached the front porch, his mouth dry as sand. His footsteps sounded unnaturally loud on the wooden steps. Before he could knock, the door swung open, revealing Aunt Clara. She regarded him calmly, her lips a thin line of disapproval. "Michael," she said, her voice cool. "I knew you'd come eventually." He nodded, swallowing hard. "May I see Emily?" Clara stepped aside, but didn't invite him in. "I'll get her. Wait here." Moments later, Emily appeared in the doorway. Her face paled at the sight of him, and she instinctively turned to check on Olivia, who was napping in another room. Closing the door behind her, she joined him on the porch, crossing her arms protectively over her chest. "How did you find us?" she demanded, her voice trembling with anger. Michael clenched and unclenched his fists. "I had to. I hired a PI. Emily, I'm sorry." "Sorry," she repeated bitterly. "You come here with a private investigator's evidence, spying on me, and say you're sorry?" He blinked back tears. "I couldn't just do nothing. Emily, please. I had to see Olivia. I'm not here to take her away. I just want to see my daughter, and I want to talk. Can we please talk?" Emily stared at him, her emotions roaring across her face. She glanced back at the cottage where Aunt Clara hovered in the doorway. Finally, she exhaled. "Fine. But Olivia is asleep, and I don't want you waking her. We'll talk on the dock." Michael nodded, following her across the small yard to the lakeside dock. The moonlight reflected off the water, casting an ethereal glow over the surface. They stopped at the edge, the gentle sound of lapping waves filling the tension between them. They stood in silence for a moment before Michael spoke, his voice cracking. "I've been going crazy, not knowing where you were, if you were safe." Emily's jaw tightened. "I'm safe enough," she replied, her gaze fixed on the dark water. "And Olivia is fine, too. No thanks to you." Michael swallowed the lump in his throat. "I deserve that. Emily, I don't know if it helps, but I ended things with Jessica. I told her it's over. I'm willing to quit my job if that's what it takes to show you I'm serious about our marriage." Emily turned to look at him, tears glistening in her eyes. "Our marriage?" she echoed. "You broke our marriage the moment you slept with her. Do you have any idea how humiliating it was for me to see you two together in that lobby?" His own eyes grew misty. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I was an idiot. I got caught up in the pressures of work, the excitement. There's no excuse. I just want a chance to make it right." Emily laughed bitterly, tears spilling over. "Make it right? How, Michael? You expect me to pretend this never happened? To forget the image of you kissing her?" Her voice shook with anger. "You lied to me. You lied about business trips, about dinners with Mr. Harrison. You chose her over us." "I never chose her over you," Michael insisted, his words tumbling out. "I was confused." Emily raised a trembling hand, stopping him. "That's the thing, Michael. You did choose her every time you went to her hotel room or stayed late at the office for those so-called meetings. Now it's too late to say it was a mistake. The damage is done." Michael's breath hitched. "Do you hate me?" Emily's tears fell in earnest. "I hate what you've done. I hate that I have to look at Olivia and know you betrayed us." She shook her head. "But I'm also hurt, and part of me still loves you. I hate that the most." A choking sob escaped Michael's lips. He reached out to her, but she stepped back. They stood there, raw and wounded under the moonlight, an unbridgeable chasm between them. Their conversation stretched into the late hours. Emily refused to let Michael inside the cottage, but she eventually relented to his request to see Olivia in the morning. They sat under the starlight, discussing logistics, how Michael might visit without driving Emily away for good, how to handle finances in the interim. When Emily finally slipped back into the cottage, Michael slept fitfully in his car. His mind reeled from the confrontation, from Emily's tearful rage, from the faint glimmer of hope that she had not declared outright that their marriage was over. At dawn, Olivia's voice roused Emily from sleep. The child was excited to see the ducks on the lake, babbling in her toddler speak. Emily's heart clenched, knowing Michael was waiting just outside. She made a quick decision and led Olivia to the porch. There Michael stood, with dark circles under his eyes and a weary smile. "Hi, sweetheart," he said softly, crouching down to Olivia's eye level. The child looked unsure, hugging Emily's leg. For a moment, heartbreak flickered across Michael's face. He reached out gently, and Olivia hesitated before stepping forward. "Daddy missed you," he whispered, pulling her into a delicate hug. Emily watched, tears brimming again. She reminded herself that Olivia deserved a father, even if he was flawed. That tiny moment of reunion was enough to tear at Emily's carefully constructed wall. Part of her wanted to lash out and push him away. Another part wanted to bury her face in his chest, to recall the warmth of the man she had loved. They spent a tense half hour together, Michael helping Olivia feed the ducks, Emily standing off to the side, arms folded protectively. When Olivia asked if Daddy was coming home, Emily felt the sting of tears once again. She shook her head silently, unable to speak. Michael glanced at her, his eyes filled with regret. "Let's take this one step at a time," he murmured, more to Emily than to Olivia. She gave him a curt nod, swallowing the pain and hoping, for Olivia's sake, that they could find a way to coexist, whatever that might look like. Over the following days, Michael rented a small cabin in the same area, a few miles down the lake. Emily allowed him carefully supervised visits with Olivia, ensuring the child didn't suffer the sting of confusion or broken promises. It was an uneasy truce, Emily refused to discuss a permanent reconciliation. Her wounds were still too fresh. But she also didn't push for an immediate divorce, torn between her lingering love for Michael and her deep-seated anger. Aunt Clara silently observed the delicate dance between them, offering Emily private words of support, but never overstepping. She saw the torment in Emily's eyes and recognized the complexity of heartbreak, betrayal, and love colliding. Occasionally, Emily and Michael found themselves talking about mundane things. Olivia's bedtime routines, her favorite songs, or what she ate for lunch. These trivial exchanges felt odd, yet somehow comforting. They were a reminder of the normalcy they once shared. Meanwhile, Michael's guilt weighed heavily. He kept his distance, respecting Emily's boundaries. Each time he saw Olivia's face light up at his arrival, he felt a dual pang of joy and despair. Would he ever be fully forgiven? Or was he doomed to this half-life, desperately clinging to fatherhood while Emily rebuilt her own world without him? A month into this arrangement, Jessica made an unannounced appearance. She had tracked Michael's sudden absence from work, discovered his leads about Emily's location, and decided to confront him. Her arrival sent shock waves through the fragile peace Emily and Michael had established. Jessica showed up at Michael's rented cabin, her eyes blazing with anger and betrayal. "You haven't returned my calls or texts," she spat. "I had to find you on my own. So, this is where you ran off to, playing house with your wife again." Michael stiffened. "It's not like that," he tried to explain. "Jessica, I told you it's over. Emily and Olivia are my family. I'm trying to fix things." Jessica let out a scornful laugh. "Fix things? You think you could just walk away from me, from everything we shared?" She gestured around. "Did you expect me to just vanish so you could rebuild your perfect suburban life?" Michael felt a surge of irritation mixed with shame. "We made a mistake," he said through gritted teeth. "I'm owning up to it now. There's nothing more to say." Unfortunately, Emily had arrived at that exact moment, intending to drop Olivia off for a short visit. She froze at the sight of Jessica, her heart pounding with renewed fury. The scene was all too much, a vicious reminder of the betrayal that had driven her here in the first place. Jessica turned at the sound of Emily's footsteps, her stare turning icy. "So, this is the woman you ran away to," she said, her tone dripping with contempt. "Isn't it ironic, Emily? You ran. He chased you, and now the mistress is left behind." Before Emily could respond, Michael stepped forward. "Jessica, that's enough. This is between me and Emily." But Emily couldn't hold back her outrage. She marched up to Jessica, her voice trembling. "Don't you dare twist this. You tore our marriage apart, and now you have a nerve to come here." Jessica's eyes flashed. "Your marriage was already in trouble, sweetheart. That's why Michael was with me in the first place." Emily's hand flew before she could stop herself, slapping Jessica hard across the face. Jessica staggered back, eyes wide with shock. Olivia, who was strapped into a car seat behind Emily, began to cry at the commotion. Michael rushed to intervene. Tears burned in Emily's eyes. She realized how easily the veneer of civility had shattered. With a shaking breath, she turned to Michael. "This is exactly why I left," she said through gritted teeth. "There's no peace with you. It's all lies and chaos." And in that moment, Emily vowed she would finalize her decision. It was time to end this toxic circle and protect herself and her child once and for all. That evening, Emily called a divorce attorney in Traverse City named Daniel Wright, recommended by a local acquaintance. She explained her situation, the betrayal, her temporary residence, and her desire to protect Olivia. Daniel listened patiently, then laid out her options. "Given your circumstances, we can file here in Michigan, provided you establish residency," he explained. "But typically, jurisdiction could be contested by your husband if he files in Illinois. We'll need to act carefully to ensure your rights and Olivia's interests are protected." Emily nodded, her hands trembling around the phone. She felt a strange clarity settle over her, like a burden lifting off her shoulders. She would no longer hide. She would fight for her daughter's stability and for her own future. The next day, she met Daniel in person. His office was modest but tidy, and Emily found his demeanor reassuring. She handed him a stack of notes and documents she had painstakingly compiled: evidence of Michael's infidelity, financial records, Olivia's birth certificate. "I have to do this," she said, her voice wavering. "I can't live in this in-between anymore." Daniel patted her hand. "You're making a brave choice. We'll file the necessary paperwork. Be prepared. Your husband may contest it, and the process might get messy, but I'll guide you every step of the way." Emily exhaled. "Thank you," she whispered, tears hovering in her eyes. I want peace for Olivia and for myself." When Michael received the divorce papers by courier at his rented cabin, a wave of nausea nearly knocked him off balance. Even though he suspected this outcome, seeing it in black and white was a shock. The words hammered home the finality of what was happening. He hurried to Emily's cottage, ignoring the voice in his head that told him she might slam the door in his face. Aunt Clara answered, her disapproval as evident as ever, but she allowed him to step inside when he begged for a moment of Emily's time. In the living room, Emily stood with her hands folded, her expression resigned. "You got the papers," she said calmly. Michael lifted the manila envelope. "Is this really what you want?" Emily swallowed, her eyes shimmering with tears she refused to shed. "I don't see it any other way. You cheated on me, Michael, and then you brought all that chaos here. I can't expose Olivia to that kind of turmoil. She deserves better." He sank onto the sofa, shaking his head. "I know I messed up. I don't expect you to forgive me easily, but can't we try counseling? Or a trial separation? Do we have to go straight to divorce?" Emily softened for a second, her gaze drifting to the hallway where Olivia was playing. "I wish I could say yes," she murmured, "but we tried coexisting. Look what happened. Jessica showed up, and it all fell apart again. I can't keep living like this, Michael. My heart is broken. I need to move on." Michael felt tears sting his eyes. "What about custody?" he asked, his voice trembling. "I don't want to lose Olivia." Emily's jaw tightened. "We'll figure out an arrangement. She needs her father, but not if it means I'm constantly in agony." Michael nodded, tears slipping down his face. "I understand." He stood, clutching the divorce papers as though they weighed 1,000 pounds. Before leaving, he managed a broken whisper. "I am sorry, Emily. I love you. I always will." She didn't respond as he walked out the door. Only after he left did Emily allow herself the luxury of sinking to the floor, sobbing quietly, while Aunt Clara gently stroked her hair. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal filings, mediation sessions, and tense negotiations. Emily insisted on primary custody of Olivia, with Michael allowed scheduled visitation. Despite his initial resistance, Michael eventually agreed. He realized that forcing a bitter custody battle would only hurt Olivia, and he truly wanted the best for his daughter. Jessica, feeling the sting of rejection and the tarnish to her professional reputation, distanced herself from Michael and eventually left Harper and Green Investments to start over elsewhere. The last Michael heard, she had moved to New York, chasing another career opportunity, leaving Chicago and her entanglement with Michael behind. As the legalities of divorce progressed, Emily found unexpected support in her mother. Susan visited the lakeside cottage, bonding with Olivia and offering Emily a shoulder to cry on. Slowly, Emily felt the suffocating pain ease, replaced by a cautious hope for the future. She began exploring freelance writing opportunities online, using her background in communications to earn income. Michael, too, had to rebuild. He resigned from Harper and Green Investments after the scandal and took a lower-profile position at a smaller firm in the same industry. He attended therapy, trying to unravel the emotional blind spots that had led him astray. Though heartbreak lingered, he found solace in knowing he could still be part of Olivia's life, visiting her on weekends and holidays, according to the arrangement with Emily. Eventually, the divorce was finalized. The day Emily received the final decree, she stood by the lake once more, the wind ruffling her hair. A sense of bittersweet closure settled over her. She had loved Michael deeply, and part of her always would, but she understood now that love alone could not fix everything. Olivia toddled up to her, holding a shiny pebble in her small hand. For you, Mommy, she said, her eyes bright. Emily knelt down, taking the pebble and pulling Olivia into a gentle hug. Thank you, sweetheart, she whispered. It's beautiful. In the distance, Aunt Clara watched with a soft smile. She remembered the frightened woman who had appeared on her doorstep all those months ago, searching for refuge. Now, Emily stood taller, more assured, despite the heartbreak she had endured. Years passed. Emily had indeed carved out a new life near Aunt Clara. Her freelance writing blossomed into a successful home-based business, allowing her to be present for Olivia, who was now a bright, happy first grader. Michael, true to his word, had been a consistent and loving father. He'd moved to a smaller town nearby after a year, taking a less demanding job that allowed him more time for Olivia and for his own personal growth. He never missed a weekend, a school event, or a chance to show he had changed. The sharp edges of betrayal had softened over time, replaced by a cautious, respectful co-parenting relationship. But at Olivia's 6th birthday party, held in Aunt Clara's Sundapple backyard, something shifted. Emily watched Michael patiently help Olivia and her friends with a complicated craft, his laughter genuine, his eyes clear of the shadows that had once haunted them. Later, as the guest departed and Olivia was happily engrossed with her new toys, Michael helped Emily clean up. She's amazing, Emily, he said softly, his gaze lingering on their daughter. You've done such a wonderful job. Emily smiled, a genuine, warm smile he hadn't seen directed at him in years. We both have, Michael. You've been a great dad. A comfortable silence settled between them, filled only with the chirping of crickets and the distant lapping of the lake. I've missed this, Michael admitted, his voice barely a whisper. Not the chaos, but us. The family we could have been, maybe still could be differently. Emily looked at him, truly looked at him, perhaps for the first time without the immediate sting of the past. She saw the remorse, yes, but also the change, the steadiness. It wouldn't be the same, Michael. I know, he said. Maybe it could be better, wiser, build on something real this time, something we both choose, knowing everything. Emily didn't answer immediately, but as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a tiny seed of hope, long dormant, began to stir within her. It wouldn't be easy, and the path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a very long time, the idea of a future that included Michael didn't fill her with dread, but with a tentative, cautious optimism. Their new chapter, it seemed, was just beginning, one built not on forgetting the past, but on learning from it together. This was the story of a shocking betrayal, a bold escape, and one mother's steadfast resolve. Emily's world was shattered, but she found the strength to rebuild, for herself and for her daughter. And in time, she found that even the deepest wounds can heal, and that second chances, though rare, are sometimes the most precious. If this story of resilience, forgiveness, and the enduring power of family moved you, please show your support. Like this video, share it with anyone who believes in new beginnings, and subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt, dramatic, and ultimately hopeful real-life stories. Your engagement helps us bring more incredible tales to life. Thank you for listening.